Welcome to our Know Your Rights Immigrant Rights Training. My name is Felicia Gomez. I'm the Senior Policy Advocate here at the ACLU of San Diego and in Imperial Counties. We are here to discuss your rights when encountering law enforcement, such as ICE, CBP, and the police while living in a border community. Quick legal disclaimer, please note that this information is not intended to be legal advice. Every person's situation is different. You should have a private conversation with an attorney if you need advice or have specific legal questions. While we may assist in civil rights matters, we may not be able to answer your legal questions today. We highly encourage you to speak with an immigration attorney for case-specific immigration questions. So for today's agenda and what people can expect in terms of our Know Your Rights training today, we'll be covering who the ACLU is, your basic rights guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States, an overview of law enforcement agencies, your rights, encounters with each law enforcement agency, immigration raids, detention and family preparedness, and finally, we will reserve the last 10 minutes or so for question and answers. So first, we'll start off with a background of what is the ACLU. First, I'd like to provide a brief overview of who we are as the ACLU and the rights that we protect. So the ACLU defends the rights enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. We also focus on education, litigation, and advocacy. Litigation is when we take legal action or dispute a case in court. A lawsuit may be against either governmental or non-governmental organizations. Advocacy is a public support of a cause or policy. For us at the ACLU of San Diego and Imperial Counties, we specifically focus on the counties of San Diego, Imperial, and surrounding regions. We have two offices, one in San Diego and one in Imperial. And at ACLU of San Diego and Imperial Counties, we focus on three different issue areas: advancing justice, immigrant rights, and racial and economic justice. We remain a defender of segments of the population who have traditionally been denied their rights, with much of our work today focused on the equality for people of color, women, gay and transgender people, people who are incarcerated, immigrants, and people with disabilities. Now let's discuss your basic rights when we encounter law enforcement. Let's be clear, the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution protects everybody against unlawful search and seizures of people and their property, regardless of their lawful or unlawful status. It protects us from warrantless searches. So regardless of a person's immigration status, law enforcement officers may not perform searches or detain people based on religion, political beliefs, national origin, sexual orientation, gender or gender expression, and race or ethnicity. You can ask law enforcement agents the reason why you are being detained or questioned, and these rights apply everywhere in the U.S., including at borders. Some of the civil rights guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution apply to everyone, including undocumented people. These include the right to be treated fairly in court, the right to free speech, the right to religious freedom, the right to remain silent, and the right to legal counsel in criminal cases. Regardless of citizenship status, these rights are granted to everyone. Please note that while we are entitled to legal counsel, which means an attorney in criminal cases, we are not entitled to an attorney in immigration matters. And while we can hire an immigration attorney, one will not be appointed to us if we can't afford one, unlike in criminal cases. Our advice is to remember these three phrases. In any interaction with law enforcement, remember these three phrases. Am I free to go? I do not consent to a search. I am going to remain silent. I want to talk to an attorney. These three phrases are the most straightforward way for you to exercise your rights. They're short and simple, and if you're in a scary situation, a 4 or 5 word sentence might be all you're able to get out. We will go into detail on each of the phrases in the upcoming slides. The question, am I free to go? In any interaction with law enforcement, ask, am I free to go? If they say yes, leave calmly. If they get in your way to or keep asking you questions, you may ask again. If they say no, or a reasonable person would not feel free to end the encounter, then you are being detained. Ask why you are being detained by asking, can you tell me why you are stopping me? Remember the phrase, I do not consent to a search. If officers or agents do not have a warrant to search you or your property, you may verbally refuse if you are asked to consent to a search of you or your property. Shaking your head or bodily gestures may be misunderstood by the police, and a court might not see it as denial. If you physically resist, you could be charged with assaulting an officer. Instead, repeat that you do not consent to any searches. Any search you consent to is a legal search. If you want to deny consent, you must do so clearly and irrefutably, saying, "I do not consent to a search," loudly enough for people around you to hear could be important in case you need witnesses later. However, officers do not need your consent to search if contraband is in plain view. They cannot search closed backpacks and bags without consent or a probable cause. "I'm going to remain silent. I want to talk to an attorney" is our third phrase. You have the right to remain silent. If you wish to exercise your right to remain silent, say so out loud. In some states, you may be required to provide your name if asked to identify yourself, and an officer may arrest you for refusing to do so. If you are stopped, you should just say, "I am going to remain silent." If you are arrested, say, "I am going to remain silent and I want to speak with a lawyer." State this right when you are stopped or if you are asked questions that you feel are not in your best interest to answer. Be clear in your invocation. Do not say, "I think," or "maybe." After you invoke the right to remain silent, you must remain silent or you risk waiving this right. Note that in police stops and arrests, not immigration, you are required to be read your Miranda rights. They include informing you that you are being arrested and that you have the right to remain silent, and an attorney may be appointed to you. Immigration officials are not required to read you your Miranda rights. An attorney is also not appointed to you in arrest by immigration officials. You have to retain your own lawyer. A disclaimer here is that you cannot assume officers will behave in a way that protects your safety or respect your rights even after you assert them. You can, however, try to assert your rights and challenge violations to your rights if you remember to assert your rights by asking, "Am I free to go? I do not consent to a search, and I am going to remain silent. I want to talk to an attorney." You may have to repeat yourself if reapproached by the same or a new officer. Now we're going to go into law enforcement agencies that surround us in San Diego County, Imperial County, and in surrounding areas. The law enforcement agencies that surround us are listed on this slide. Think of them as separated into two buckets. One is immigration, which you can see on this left-hand side, which handles national security and local protection agencies. The first bucket of immigration falls under the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. The agencies include Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, and Customs and Border Protection, or CBP. Under ICE, we also have Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI, Enforcement and Removal Operations, ERO, and under Customs and Border Protection, we also have Border Patrol. The second bucket is local law enforcement and protection agencies, which include local police departments, such as the San Diego Police Department or the El Centro Police Department, and the Sheriff's Department, such as the San Diego County Sheriff's Department or the Imperial County Sheriff's Department. It's important to understand some basic functions or jurisdictions of each agency so that you know what their legal limits are, how to interact with them, and how to document accurate information. So ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, generally performs their duty everywhere that Customs and Border Protection, CBP, and Border Patrol are not active. CBP, Customs and Border Protection, are usually at U.S. ports of entry and within 100 miles of the border. We'll talk about this in a minute. Border Patrol are the roving mobile units of CBP that go beyond the immediate border up to the 100-mile boundary. HSI conducts federal criminal investigations and typically serve on joint task forces with local and state law enforcement agencies. ERO, Enforcement and Removal Operations, conduct arrests and removal, and maybe some of the immigration agents who go to people's houses. Local police departments both enforce traffic and criminal laws within their municipality or city. And the Sheriff's Department has county jurisdiction to enforce both traffic and criminal violations. Other law enforcement agencies that may not play as critical a role in immigration include the DEA or FBI and California Highway Patrol, CHP, as well as San Diego Unified School Police. Also, the California Values Act is a state law that ensures state and local resources are not used to enforce federal immigration laws. This means, for example, that local police making a routine traffic stop for a broken turn signal generally may not contact ICE or Border Patrol if they suspect the driver may be an undocumented immigrant. Some exceptions may apply to people with criminal history. Now let's discuss the different law enforcement agencies that surround San Diego County, Imperial County, and each of the surrounding areas. We want to make sure that folks are able to visually identify the different agencies. And here are some of the corresponding insignia for the agencies we'll be discussing today. It includes ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is here. This includes the badge as well as the jacket that's typically worn. Customs and Border Patrol, or CBP, Border Patrol, Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, as well as Enforcement and Removal Operations, ERO. Firstly, because sometimes officials show up in plain clothing, you will have to ask what agency they are affiliated with. Recognizing each agency is also important for documentation, legal observation or eyewitnessing, video recording, etc., especially in a court of law. The next slide I'm going to go through in terms of recognizing each agency as well for San Diego and Imperial counties. These are for local law enforcement agencies. So the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, the San Diego Police Department, the Imperial County Sheriff's Department, and then the El Centro Police Department. And also want to lift up here that there are different local police departments beyond just San Diego and El Centro and San Diego and Imperial counties that people have, such as Oceanside Police Department, National City Police Department, things like that. But these are the top two largest local law enforcement agencies in our regions. Your rights, encounters with each law enforcement agency. Here are a few of the key terms that play an important role when you encounter any law enforcement agency. It is illegal for agents to use the color of your skin or the language you speak as a cause for an arrest. All law enforcement agencies need to meet the adequate level of suspicion to stop you for a prolonged period, search you or your belongings, and arrest you. Two very important standards are reasonable suspicion and probable cause. On the left side, we see that sheriffs and police need reasonable suspicion, facts that create a reasonable belief, a little more than a hunch, that you are committing or have committed a crime to temporarily stop you. Meanwhile, immigration agents must have facts that create a reasonable belief, a little more than a hunch, that you are committing or have committed a violation of immigration law to temporarily stop you. For example, immigration officials should not stop you only on the basis of the color of your skin. A prolonged stop or detention where you are not free to leave, you or your vehicle are blocked from leaving, or where an officer grabs you or holds you down and does not allow you to leave, requires the officer to have a higher standard of suspicion. An arrest requires the officer to have probable cause, a belief based on individualized facts or evidence that you committed a crime. On the right side, we see that sheriffs and police must have facts that make it probable that you are committing or have committed a crime. For example, if an officer sees you steal something, she has an adequate amount of suspicion and facts to stop and arrest you. Similarly, immigration agents must have facts that make it probable that you are committing or have committed a violation of immigration or federal to arrest you. They must have facts that you have unlawful status. For example, if during a stop you mention that you are undocumented, the agent can then arrest you. That's why it's important to remember, I choose to remain silent. These required standards ensure that people are not searched or seized because of their color of their skin, national origin, or language they speak. Because stops and arrests that don't meet the right standards can be challenged. Asking officers, why am I being stopped or why am I being arrested, can help a lawyer or a court identify violations of your rights. Regardless of immigration status, you have the right to remain silent, which means you are not required to answer any question or sign any documents until you are able to speak with an attorney. Officers may not use excessive, unreasonable, or unnecessary force against you. It is important to note that you might be subject to a lengthy detention for further investigation if you do not answer all questions, but admitting to be a foreign national or undocumented might have more detrimental consequences. If you are stopped by police in your vehicle, stop the car as safely and quickly as possible. Turn off the car. Turn on the internal light, partially open the window, and place your hands on the steering wheel. You may ask, why am I being stopped? You have rights in those situations. Drivers and passengers have the right to remain silent. You do not have to answer questions about your citizenship status, your place of birth, or even your national origin. When asked, show your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance. You do not have to consent to a search. You may say, I do not consent to a search, but if police believe your car contains evidence of a crime, they can search it. Drivers and passengers can ask, am I free to leave? If yes, silently leave. Police officers are not allowed to ask about immigration status. This means police officers as well as sheriff's officers. You do not have to answer questions about where you were born, whether you're a U.S. citizen, or how you entered the country. You have the right to remain silent. If you are arrested, police have to read you your Miranda rights, informing you that you have the right to remain silent and that you have the right to an attorney. You should tell the officers that you will not speak until your attorney is present. If you feel your rights have been violated, write down everything you remember, including officers' badges and patrol car numbers, which agency the officers were from, and any other details. Get contact information for witnesses. If you're injured, seek medical attention immediately and take photographs of your injuries. File a written complaint with the agency's Internal Affairs Division or Civilian Complaint Board. In most cases, you can file a complaint anonymously if you wish. Avoid the traps. Police are legally allowed to lie and use tactics to get you to give up your rights. Here are a few to keep in mind. Cops often read you your rights to remain silent and then proceed directly to your questions. They don't typically pause and say, okay, so having heard all that, do you want to waive your rights? You actually have to interrupt them and state unambiguously that you are invoking the right to remain silent and that you are requesting a lawyer. If you answer any of their questions and don't explicitly invoke your rights, that can count as a waiver. If you invoke the right to remain silent, remain silent. And it's important that you never sign anything without a lawyer present, unless it's a ticket. Signing a ticket may allow you to walk away with an infraction rather than being arrested. Some of the key traps are, do you know what you did? The truth is an invitation to incriminate yourself. Tell us your side of the story. The truth is that police are there to gather evidence against you. You're not in trouble. We're only interested in another incident. The truth is police are legally allowed to lie and bluff to intimidate you. You are offered a cigarette or a beverage. The truth is that can be used to collect your DNA. We'll now move to some of your rights when encountering ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So now that we've reviewed your rights if you are stopped by police, let's discuss your rights when you encounter ICE. First, exercising your rights is not a reason for deportation. Exercising your rights may be helpful in certain situations. In fact, remember that ICE agents need probable cause to make an arrest. Probable cause means that the agent must have facts about you that make it probable that you are committed a violation of immigration law or federal law. An ICE agent may ask about your immigration status without cause or a warrant, but you are not compelled to answer their questions. If you don't speak English, you may request an interpreter. You have the right to remain silent, and you should indicate that you will not answer any questions until your attorney is present. We'll now talk about ICE collateral arrests, because ICE agents have a practice of making what is called quote-unquote collateral arrests. It is best to exercise your right to remain silent. A collateral arrest occurs when an individual is arrested even though they were not the target of a law enforcement agency. This typically can occur when ICE is taking action against one person and they arrest people in their presence. For example, immigrants have been arrested while accompanying members of ICE check-ins, waiting with coworkers for rides to work, and being in the same home as officers target. We will discuss ICE raids in detail later in this presentation. Even in cases of collateral arrests, law enforcement still have to have probable cause that the person is in violation of immigration laws. Exercising your right to remain silent may help you not disclose information about citizenship and immigration status that can lead to an arrest. It is also recommended that you stay calm and do not run. Running away from ICE agents can be sufficient reason for ICE to arrest you. Even in the event that ICE enters your home, you can simply state, "I do not wish to answer any questions." Exercising your right to remain silent and to speak to an attorney may buy you time to assess your legal options. Without a warrant, probable cause is needed for searches and arrests. ICE typically cannot search your belongings without consent or probable cause. If an agent asks you if they can search you or your belongings, you have the right to say no. State, "I do not consent to a search." If you say yes or otherwise consent to the search is legal. Additionally, they can search your belongings if evidence of a crime or contraband is in plain view. If you feel you or your belongings were unlawfully searched or you were wrongfully arrested, contact our office and we provide contact information at the end of this presentation. Remember that a lawful warrantless arrest requires probable cause, or facts that make it probable you are committing or have committed a violation of federal law. Whereas a brief stop only requires reasonable suspicion. This means that the agent must have facts about you that make it probable that you are not a U.S. citizen and you are committing or committed a violation of immigration or federal law. If you are stopped, ask the agent why they stopped you. Ask, "Am I free to go?" If you are not free to go, ask, "Why am I being detained?" If you are arrested, remember to say, "I'm going to remain silent and I want to speak with my lawyer." Remain silent and do not sign anything without consulting with the lawyer. Now let's discuss CBP, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, what they do, and what your rights are should you encounter CBP officers or Border Patrol. CBP officers and Border Patrol agents both work for the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency, but play different roles. CBP officers are tasked with working at ports of entry, inspecting individuals and goods that can enter the U.S. Border Patrol is a law enforcement arm of the U.S. CBP agency that is tasked with patrolling the U.S. border so that it can identify immigration violations and federal crimes. Customs and Border Protection argue that it has special authority within a reasonable distance of any external boundary of the United States. This includes all land and sea borders up to 100 miles away from an actual border crossing. Border Patrol agents are the agents typically administering the regions surrounding ports of entry. So what does this mean? Whether you are at the border or within the 100-mile border zone, your rights will vary. We will discuss possible situations and your rights when you encounter Border Patrol, BP agents, or CBP officers. When asked by a CBP officer or Border Patrol agent to present documentation, you should generally provide it if you have documentation. In California, U.S. citizens do not have to carry proof of citizenship. If you are over 18 and have valid immigration documents, such as a valid student visa, you should carry those documents. If an agent asks you to provide them, you should. If you are an immigrant without documents, you can decline a request. This may lead to more questions and possible detention. Remember that you still have a right to remain silent. I am going to remain silent. I want to talk to an attorney. Never lie or provide false documents to immigration officials. Never lie or provide false documents to immigrant officials. Never carry fake documentation. Don't sign anything without consulting your lawyer. When you encounter Border Patrol agents, know that Border Patrol agents can stop you, question you, and possibly detain you within the 100-mile border zone. A reminder, this includes 100-mile from land and sea borders, to carry out their goal, identifying undocumented individuals. For reference, detaining you means that the agent or officer may briefly stop you if they have reasonable suspicion, based on specific facts about you that create reasonable belief, a little more than a hunch, that you are committing or committed a violation of immigration law or federal law. Like arrests by other law enforcement agencies, an arrest typically needs to be based on probable cause. In other words, the agent must have facts about you that make it probable that you are committing or committed a violation of immigration or federal law. At all times, you have the right to remain silent. You should state, "I am going to remain silent. I want to talk to an attorney." Remember that in immigration purposes, you are not entitled to have an attorney assigned to you, but you may retain one and still assert your right to remain silent, speak with your attorney, and not sign anything without consulting with your attorney. Border Patrol roving patrols, or mobile units as they're sometimes referred to, cannot pull you over to question occupants about their immigration status unless agents have a reasonable suspicion. This means more than a hunch of an immigration violation or crime. A prolonged stop requires probable cause. This is a reasonable belief based on the circumstances that an immigration violation of crime has likely occurred. Also, Border Patrol cannot pull you over to search your vehicle without your consent or probable cause. Again, law enforcement agencies may search your belongings if contraband is in plain view. Agents should always be able to explain the reason for a stop to the driver. If agents are unable to explain the reason, take note of identifying agent information and contact our office as soon as possible. Again, we will share the direct email for contacting our office at the end of this presentation. In California, it is illegal for Border Patrol to rely solely on the race or ethnicity of a driver or passenger to justify a stop. Even though Border Patrol needs reasonable suspicion to stop you or pull you over, there are permanent checkpoints in our region, including I-5 North in San Clemente, I-15 North near Temecula, I-8 West in Pine Valley, and Highway 94 near East Jamul. At checkpoints, there are some considerable differences. You may be stopped, questioned about your immigration status, and even detained for a limited time to verify your status. Border Patrol may stop vehicles at certain checkpoints to do two things. First, ask a few limited questions to verify citizenship or immigration status of the vehicle's occupants. And two, visually inspect the exterior of a vehicle. Agents may send any vehicle to a secondary inspection area for the same purpose: brief questioning and visual inspection. Agents should not ask questions unrelated to verifying citizenship, nor can they hold you for any extended time without cause. Even though you always have the right to remain silent, if you don't answer questions to establish your citizenship, officials may detain you longer to verify your immigration status. Now we'll talk a little bit about Border Patrol on private land. Border Patrol agents do have the right to enter private land without a warrant within 25 miles of the border. However, there are limitations. For one, agents may enter onto private land without a warrant within 25 miles of the border, but they cannot go onto private land more than 25 miles north of the border without a warrant or consent. Border Patrol should not cause physical damage to private property. An agent should not ask questions unrelated to verifying citizenship or immigration status, nor can they hold you for an extended time without cause. If you are questioned in this scenario, you may assert your right to remain silent. When seeking to enter the U.S., at customs, such as airports or ports of entry, there are stricter requirements, and individuals wishing to enter the U.S. have fewer rights than people within the U.S. Individuals may be questioned about citizenship, visa, green card, items being brought into the country, the purpose of the trip, and the length of stay. Also, federal authorities such as CBP officers can search your vehicle and all passenger belongings without a warrant, suspicion, probable cause, or consent. However, they should not ask about your religious affiliation or political views. Some key points when interacting with sheriffs and police officers. You should remember to remain silent and calm. Follow orders and ask if you are free to go. Officers are not allowed to ask about your immigration status. Drivers and passengers do not have to consent to a search. Your Miranda rights will be read to you if you are arrested. And you do have a right to an appointed attorney if you cannot afford one. Some key points for when interacting with ICE, CBP, Border Patrol. This also includes HSI, ERO. You might have to ask the officer to identify which agency he's with if he's in plain civilian clothing. Remain silent and calm. You may state that you will not answer questions without an attorney and then retain your own attorney. You do not have to answer questions about your immigration status. If you are a citizen or have lawful status, you may answer questions about your status and provide appropriate documentation to avoid being detained for a longer period. You are not entitled to have an attorney appointed to you. You are not entitled to be read your Miranda rights. And do not sign anything without consulting your attorney. Now we'll transition into immigration at your door and in raid scenarios. Now that we've discussed your rights at individualized interactions with law enforcement, let's discuss what to do if immigration, such as ICE, ERO, or HSI, is at your door. We'll also discuss group interactions or mass searches and seizures by immigration, also known as raids. In this segment, it is important to remember what we previously learned, that the Fourth Amendment protects us from warrantless, unlawful searches and seizures. Usually we can protect ourselves from raids or unwelcomed interactions with immigration by remembering our rights. We are going to go over what our rights are and what we can do should we encounter ICE or Border Patrol at our homes, in public areas, or in privately owned business centers. As mentioned earlier, officers don't always appear in the uniform of the agency to which they belong. It's important to ask for a valid warrant and which agency they represent. Remember, all law enforcement agencies are required to have a signed judicial search warrant to enter your home. Inspect the search warrant to confirm that it is signed by a judge and that it identifies the address and the name of the person in your home to be arrested or the places and items that ICE wishes to inspect. We'll share an example of a valid judicial search warrant next. But if they try to enter your home without a warrant, tell them they do not have permission to enter. Remember your right to remain silent and indicate that you will not answer questions without your attorney present. Be aware that ICE or immigration officers can detain other people who are not the target of their search in what's called collateral arrests. Because ICE has been known to arrest multiple individuals in their homes, it is important not to open the door or invite officers into the home. Therefore, if immigration agents do not have a valid arrest warrant for someone in your home, have only that person step outside and close the door behind them. Examples of warrants, here we want to share with folks a couple examples of the warrants. So note that the proper warrant on the left, this is the warrant on the left, comes from a court and is signed by a judge. And you can see that based on the squares here. These are the things that you need to be looking out for. Again, a warrant that does not have a judge's signature is not a valid warrant. You can refuse entry to immigration officials. So you're looking for the signature here in the red box at the bottom. The improper warrant on the right, now we're looking at this warrant at the right, is signed by an agency representative, in this case, ICE. A warrant for removal/deportation, Form I-205, does not allow officers to enter a location without consent. If you allow agents into your home that do not have a valid warrant, you have therefore consented and the entry is then lawful. A search warrant that does not have your name on it may still be valid if it gives the correct address and description of the place the officers will be searching. An arrest warrant that does not have your name on it may still be validly used for your arrest if it describes you with enough detail to identify you. An arrest warrant alone does not allow entry into every location. However, they can enter your house without a warrant if they are chasing a suspect in hot pursuit, to provide emergency aid, or if they reasonably believe evidence is going to be destroyed, or if evidence of a crime or contraband is in plain view. A search warrant allows police to enter the address listed on the warrant, but officers can only search the areas and for the items listed. These are some of the items to look out for, so you can see them in larger text. In terms of the valid warrant, these are the things that you're looking out for versus the invalid warrant. What to do if an immigration agent, like an ICE agent, an ERO agent, or an HSI agent is at your door. Remember these key takeaways if you are home and there is a knock on the door. First is, do not open the door. ICE agents and immigration officers may pretend to be someone else. Talk to officers through a closed door. Ask for the agency they represent. Ask them to show ID through a window or peephole. Document the names and badge numbers. Ask the agent to slide the warrant under the door or show it through a warrant. Look to see if it has the correct name, address, and signature of the judge. If the warrant is not complete or not accurate, you should say that you do not consent to the search, but do not interfere if the officers decide to do the search. You must and should only let them in if they have a valid warrant. Because ICE has been known to make collateral arrests, arrest individuals who aren't their target, it's important not to open the door or invite officers into the home. If officers do not produce a warrant, keep the door closed. State, I do not consent to your entry. If agents force their way in, do not resist or interfere. State, I do not consent to your entry or search of these premises. I am exercising my right to remain silent. I won't answer questions without a lawyer. Call your lawyer as soon as possible. Ask if you are allowed to watch the search. If you are allowed to, you should. Take notes, including names, badge numbers, which agency each officer is from, where they searched, and what they took. If others are present, have them act as witnesses to watch carefully what is happening. While we have more protections in our own homes, it is important to know that immigration may have more flexibility in public areas with limitations. ICE may enter areas open to the general public. In California, SB 54 designates schools, hospitals, and courthouses safe spaces where mass deportation should not be carried out. Unfortunately, ICE has been spotted near schools recently. Generally, immigration cannot search or enter non-public areas, businesses without a valid warrant signed by a judge. However, immigration officials may enter or search non-public areas, such as of a business, if they have the property owner's consent. If you encounter immigration agents such as ICE or Border Patrol, do not run. They can use that as a reason to arrest you. Also, ICE and Border Patrol generally cannot search or seize records or documents without a valid search warrant signed by a judge or the owner's consent, or exigent circumstances, such as a police chase. If ICE presents itself at a non-public area, such as your business, a place of work, the owner of the property should inspect the search warrant to confirm that it is signed by a judge and that it identifies the places and items that ICE wishes to inspect. The owner of the property can refuse to consent to a search if ICE does not have a valid judicial warrant signed by a judge. Search and arrest warrants are for the people or area and require a judge's signature, and administrative subpoenas are those issued by a federal agency such as the DEA, the FBI, etc., without judicial oversight. They are either a notice to appear in court or to produce certain documents. While these are not enforceable without a court order, they should be reviewed by an attorney. If you are a witness to an arrest or raid, do not interfere. Comply with orders. Remember that you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to record in your own home. You have the right to also record in public. This includes at vehicle stops, at checkpoints, street, public transportation, etc. Note that CBP prohibits videotaping or recording anything on government property at a port of entry. If questioned, you may ask if you are free to go and can also indicate that you will not answer questions until your attorney is present. If you are in San Diego County, you can contact the San Diego Rapid Response Network to report raids. We will share this phone number at the end of the presentation and in your materials. We'll now transition into detention and family preparedness. To ensure that you and your family is prepared should you be detained, we'll now discuss what to expect if you are detained and how friends, family, and your community can prepare. First and most importantly, should you be detained, it is important to know your rights. And also, remember details of the agents and incident. Note the agent's name, badge number, or other identifying characteristics. Do not say or sign anything without speaking to a lawyer. If you are taken to Otay Mesa Detention Center or Imperial Regional Detention Facility, these are both of the immigrant detention facilities in San Diego and Imperial counties, ask for the free legal orientation program or LOP. If you are detained, you should also request to make a call to your family to do the following: share arrest details and where you are being detained, share your alien registration number or A number, ask your friends and family to find an attorney and provide the attorney with this information. They should request representation through the San Diego County Immigrant Rights Legal Defense Program and list out the phone number or way to contact them. We will share the Immigrant Rights Legal Defense Program phone number at the end of this presentation as well. Because we are used to telephone numbers stored in cell phones, it is important that you memorize the phone number of a reliable relative or friend because your cell phone will be confiscated. If you are taken to a detention center, you have the right to ask to speak to your consulate. Immigration officers will ask if you agree to self-deport. If you agree to self-deport, you will give up the possibility for future relief. It is not a good idea to agree to self-deport because you give up the possibility of future relief. You may be asked multiple times to sign documents, including voluntary departure. You may refuse and may need to respond each time, "I want to speak to my attorney." Immigration officers will prepare documents with the immigration charges. Do not sign anything without reviewing it with an attorney. They may give you a court date if you are eligible. They will also determine if you are eligible for bond. Additionally, if you have a prior deportation order, you will be ineligible for bond. If you have a prior deportation order, speak to an attorney. It is also extremely important that you let immigration officials know if you have a fear of returning to your home country, as it may be your only chance to fight your case. Remember that you may be asked multiple times to sign voluntary departure, forms that will make you immediately deported. It is important that you state that you want to speak to your attorney every time. Because so much is at stake, if a loved one is detained, a prepared family has a much better chance of staying together. To be prepared, determine childcare, school arrangements, and long-term plans. Also identify caregivers through authorization forms. You can do so by following the following steps. Determine caregivers, identify lead family member or members to activate and determine plan if someone is detained. This could include calling a lawyer, community contact, or calling the San Diego Rapid Response Network. Another way to stay prepared is to create a financial plan. Identify family, friends, or caregivers as a point person for financial matters. You can also prepare by completing forms, gathering documents, creating emergency contacts, put all information in a binder or a folder, and alert relevant family and friends of its locations. Another way is to role play with children. And lastly, ensure that your finances, including bank accounts, homes, vehicles, businesses, will be managed in your absence. Be aware that a caregiver authorization form is different from power of attorney. The crucial difference is that power of attorney is for financial authorization, and the caregiver form is for childcare purposes and guardianship. Not only can you and your family prepare for worst case scenario by doing the above, but memorizing your rights in each situation that we discuss can potentially prevent detrimental impacts to your life after run-ins with law enforcement. You can get a detailed plan from the Immigrant Legal Resource Center website or link posted at the end of the presentation in your materials, and that will be a link that we share with you all afterwards via email. You and your family should also contact your consulate to find out more about financial preparedness in your home country, obtaining up-to-date identity documents, and arrange naturalization of your U.S. family members if available in your case, you and your family, in case you or your family member were to be deported. If you are detained, there are some things that family and friends can do to help. For one, they should find out where the person is detained. They can do so by doing the following. You can call ICE at one of the numbers listed below on this slide. And as you can see, we have a San Diego number, an Imperial number, as well as a national number. In some cases, individuals who are detained are taken to facilities outside of San Diego, Imperial, or California, hence the 1-800 national number. Use the ICE online detainee locator. You can see the link here, https://locator.ice.gov. For the detainee locator, try variations of the full name and country of origin. Detainee info is usually posted within 3 days. Unblock your phone lines and your phone settings to receive collect calls from the detention center. And finally, friends and family should visit detention facilities only if they have legal status. On this slide, I'm resharing important phone numbers which are useful for loved ones of a detained individual. Remember that family and friends can help the loved one in detention by doing the following. Immediately contact an immigration attorney. Be wary of consulting with notaries as they are not permitted to provide legal advice. You can find a licensed immigration attorney by searching the California State Bar's website or your county's legal referral service. You can also call the Immigrant Rights Legal Defense Program at 619-446-2883, which operates Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. This program is open to any individuals currently detained at Otay Mesa Detention Center who have ties to San Diego County or who are in alternatives to detention programs. You can also call the San Diego Rapid Response Network and can be used to report immigration-related non-emergencies and get information and advice on immigration processes and issues. A huge thank you to each of you for being here with us tonight. We appreciate your time, and we hope that this information is useful to everyone and that we share it, right? If you know this information, share it with your neighbors, share it with your community member, with your family. The more people in our communities that are equipped with their rights, the more empowered we are when these situations arrive and when we're in high stress scenarios. Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.